Welcome everyone to our latest presentation here on Assistive Touch. This presentation is the Odeon application done by Charles Meyer.
So I'm going to present to everybody today about the Odeon application. I have hearing aids myself, and right now only my right hearing aid is functioning. But for the purposes of this presentation, we only need one hearing aid to show what the Odeon app can do. So there are a lot of things that you can do with the Odeon app, and we're going to go over them. But first, I'm going to go over the general layout of the page. So at the top, there's a bar that has three arrows on it, and it has the application or the program that you're currently using. Typically, this is set to just your normal hearing aids. When it says program at the top, it is referring to whether you're connected to your hearing aids or some other peripheral device, like a Connect clip or maybe a relay that you have in your home. There are a bunch of different things that you can connect your hearing aids to. Underneath the bar where it says program, there is a space with two thick vertical bars that are parallel to one another. They're in the middle of the screen, and they are maybe like half an inch apart, maybe a little bit less, quarter of an inch. These bars represent the levels that your hearing aids, the volume levels that your hearing aids can go to. Underneath this, on the bottom quarter of the screen, there are two rows of icons. They're horizontal across the page. The first is a smaller row of circular icons, and then the second are different. They look like little tabs that you could press that have three categories. The bottom row of icons are, because they're categories, typically, well, actually always, we start in the sound category, which is on the left. The three icons are sound, hearing aids, and more. When you open the application, you're always going to be on the sound tab, because that's what controls the level of volume that your hearing aids are operating at. This starts at 0. Now, this can be a little confusing, but 0 represents the prescription that you last got evaluated for, meaning the last hearing test that you had is what your prescription is going to be set to. So essentially what the hearing aids do is they look for, based on the data that your audiologist receives from a hearing test, they say, okay, well, Charles was low in this area. He needs assistance with these ranges of hearing. So for me, that's the higher pitch. So my hearing aids have a louder volume at the higher pitch of hearing. So those are kind of the softer sounds, the sound of like a kettle, or a violin. Some of the higher pitches of a violin are very hard for me to hear. So my prescription says, okay, well, 0 is where we want to be. So the bars, the vertical thick bars in the middle of the application, those can be controlled with a plus and minus button that is at the top and bottom of each vertical bar. So hearing aids typically can go to +4 or just off. The lowest they can go while still being on and functioning is -8. So that's, and I don't know how they do the levels, but that's 8 levels below what your prescription is set to. So we can go all the way up to +4, and we can go all the way down to -5, 6, 7, 8, and then off. Now, you can move these bars a couple of different ways. You can move them by hitting the plus sign at the top of the bar, or you can change the setting a couple of different ways. You can click the plus button at the top to move it up, or you can click the minus button at the bottom of the vertical bar to move it down. You can also drag, so you can just put your finger on the R or the L, and then you can just drag up and down, and it will go to whatever setting you put it at. So those are the 2 vertical bars in the middle. The next thing we're going to talk about are the 5 buttons that are beneath these bars. These occupy the bottom quarter of the page. They're directly under the 2 thick vertical bars, and they have a couple of different pieces of functionality. These things aren't necessarily used commonly, but you can use them in particular situations that I think make it so that it's worth knowing what they do. So the first button on the left is the mute button. This fully mutes your hearing aids, turns them to all the way to off. This is useful in a couple of places. I find this useful when I know there's a fire truck coming, or I know that there's a train coming. If there's about to be a massive increase in noise, I do not want my ears exposed to that. So this is very helpful when I walk around with headphones on. I find all the different noises to be a little bit, it's just a cacophony of noises. There's a lot going on out there, and hearing aids make it so that those smaller things that you could ignore normally aren't so easy to ignore. So this function allows me to carry on conversations without headphones on in public with people, as long as I kind of keep an eye on, like, oh, there's a train coming, there's a fire truck, or there's a noisy car, or whatever. That button, the mute button on the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, that makes it so that I can have those conversations and say, oh, okay, well, I just have to be a little mindful. Oh, this car is coming. I'm going to mute for a second. And, the other person will start speaking louder. The problem is that typically when a fire truck goes by, the noise of the sirens is so mind-rattling that it's impossible to even think about hearing the other person, much less concentrate on the conversation. So that function is really, I find to be very, very useful. So the next function that on this row of buttons is, this is a little confusing because this button is to show you the 2 thick vertical lines that you can control the volume with your hearing aids, control the volume of your hearing aids. So this button, much like the sound button at the bottom of the screen, the major categories, this button is already pressed when we are in the application. I don't know why it's an option. It feels a little bit strange given the fact that none of these other buttons really change the screen that much. So it's a strange design choice, shall we say. So that button allows you to pull up the 2 different thick vertical bars that allow us to control the hearing aid volume. The next option is, so this is the third button from the left and the right. The next option is the speech booster. This is, I would say, it's a useful option, but I find it has varying results. What it's essentially made to do is it's essentially made to increase your ability to concentrate on somebody's speech while you are in maybe a noisier place. So it supposed to help with restaurants, social gatherings, and public spaces. So it can have a varying effect. Essentially what it does is it reduces ambient noise. Sometimes this works. It doesn't work for like lots of ambient noise, but it does work for just a little bit. That kind of little hum from the restaurant gets a little bit easier to deal with. I'm not sure how this technology works, but it does work. You can toggle this on and off. So if we click this button, if you click the third button, it brings up a little pane on the bottom that pulls up to occupy about a third of the screen. There's a little X box that you can use to close out of this if you don't want to be there. But essentially what it is it says speech booster, reduces background noise and helps you focus on conversation. And then there's a little activatable pip, so like a little switch that goes back and forth. There's also a box underneath that says, don't show this screen again. Just tap the icon to turn on Speech Booster. I, for the purposes of our presentation, do not have that selected. Because if you have it selected, then you never really see this box. So you can essentially, once you click the second box that says don't show this screen again, just taps the icon to turn on Speech Booster. You can just turn this on and off easily. So you turn it on, it takes a little bit of a second, and then you turn it off. Oh, the next one, this is the fourth pip. This one is represented by little, it looks like wavelengths almost, little bars. And this allows us to do something that's a little complicated, but I think kind of worth talking about. So this is the streaming equalizer. This only works for peripherals. So this does not work for like things to the Connect clip. This does not work for like your hearing aids normally. This works for, so I'll just read what it does. Streaming equalizer balances the pitch of the audio you're streaming from your phone to hearing aids. So what this means is that if you're streaming audio from your phone to your hearing aids, so if you're listening to a book, or if you're listening to music or a YouTube video or the radio, whatever it is, you can use it to adjust the 3 different tones that we normally target in the spectrum. So low bass tones, mid-range tones, and high treble tones. So for me, struggling with the treble tones, the high tones, I typically raise the booster for the high. So to go all the way back, when we click this fourth button, what happens is it brings up another additional menu that takes up about, I'd say, 2/3 of the screen. On this menu, there are 3 options. They are the lows, there are the mids, and there are the highs. Under each individual option, these options are shown from left to right in the middle of the screen. There's essentially a volume bar that you can drag up or down. Now, typically for these equalizer settings, they're all set at 0. So that means there's no boosting for any setting, the low, the mids, or the highs. So what happens is that for me, I could turn the highs up. So to do this, I would go to the high tab and I would drag the bar, the circle on the left, from down to up. You can do this with any one of them. The way that this page is set up again is it comes up, it takes about 2/3 of the screen. It has 3 separate columns. Each column is titled, the first column is titled low, which is on the left. Then there's mid, which is in the middle. And then there's high, which is on the right. Underneath the titles, it says the decibel amounts for each. So they're all set to 0. And then there are 3 vertical bars next to two next to a smaller bar that you can drag vertically, so up and down. That one's a little bit more complicated. That takes fooling around with, but remember, that function is only for streaming music from your phone or another relay to your hearing aids. It does not work for when you are accessing information from your hearing aids and using them in active listening mode. So it's important to remember that you can't change how your hearing aids are live listening because they are set to a certain prescription, meaning the prescription that you got from your last hearing test. So I'm going to take a quick moment just to say, right now I've spoken about 2 times that your prescription is relevant. And the reason I do this is because hearing can change. It's important that you get a consistent evaluation from your doctor, because what can happen is if you lose a different pitch or a different area of your hearing, turning the hearing aids up to a higher volume is not going to solve the problem, because you don't have good access to that pitch. So when your hearing aids raise certain levels of volume, which they do in parity to a certain extent so that, certain sounds don't cancel out other sounds, they raise the entire volume level, not just the levels of your prescription or where you have a deficiency. So it's important to remember that in order to keep up with, or in order to get the best use of your hearing aids, you should make sure that you're getting consistent hearing tests. That is important because it dictates how effective the prescription that you have set for your hearing aids is. So I'm just going to take just a quick moment for that, because that is important. Because if you go a long time without getting your prescription tested, just turning the hearing aid up could damage the well-functioning parts of your ears, because you're trying to listen for sounds that the prescription isn't going to boost. So it's important to get your ears evaluated consistently. The last button on this is called the remote microphone button. This button allows you to turn your smartphone into a microphone. So essentially, if you're at a conference or you're speaking to somebody and your hearing aids are just not cutting it, what you can do is you can put your phone near the person, and the hearing aids will use the phone as its transmission device instead of the microphones on your hearing aids. So it will receive the sound that your phone is hearing, not your hearing aids. When you click this button, which is on the far right, it brings up a window that takes up about a quarter of the page, a little bit less, or a little bit more. There's a pip on the right, and it says, on the left side, it says remote microphone. Turn your smartphone into a microphone and stream surrounding sounds directly to your hearing aids. This is exactly like I just said. It uses your phone as the microphone instead of the hearing aids themselves. So this can be useful, like I said, in places where you're, far away from somebody and you need a little bit of help hearing them. Maybe they don't project well. There's a bunch of different reasons that you could utilize this. Okay. So the next thing that we're going to talk about are the 3 buttons on the bottom. These buttons, sound, hearing aids, and more, are just they're like big menu tabs, essentially. These are going to have less to do with interacting with your hearing aids and more with gathering information and kind of testing for things. So you're already on sound, which is the button on the left. When you open the app, that is the button that you're on. So if you choose to click any of the other buttons, this is how you get back to the interface that I just described. So we're going to click on hearing aids. Now, as you notice, my left is disconnected. I was not as good about taking care of my left hearing aid as my right one, and I wore it when I was at the gym. That's because my left ear is my more affected ear, and I got a little bit of water in there, and now I have to get it replaced, which is okay, but it's okay because I need another hearing test. So it works out perfectly, but ideally I would have both hearing aids here, which is why it says at the top, see tips to connect left hearing aid, which that thing is not connecting. So when we open the hearing aid screen, we're greeted by your name, so Charles in my case, and then there is a screen beneath that says battery level. This tells you the battery levels of both of your hearing aids, and it has pictures of your hearing aids, and then beneath those pictures, it has the amount of charge remaining, or the amount of time that your hearing aids can remain active. This amount is not entirely active or accurate. Sorry. The reason for that is because when we use our hearing aids to connect to certain things, we are asking it to do more than just listen with the microphones on our hearing aids. And that takes a little bit more out of the battery. I find that you get about 10 hours, and then if you shut them off, you can get about another 8 hours when I use them regularly. So if I'm without my charger, something that I will really make sure to do is I will shut my hearing aids off when I go to bed, because I know that they won't last the full day if I just have them sitting there. So on this screen, like I said, it's going to say your name at the top, then it's going to give the battery level of both of your hearing aids. So the left hearing aid is on the left side, and then the right hearing aid is on the right side. There will be an option to find your hearing aids. I don't find that this works very well unless you were connected to a Wi-Fi source. So it's unreliable. When I click it, you have to allow your location, and then it can be a little finicky. So if you say you lose connection with Wi-Fi or you lose connection with one of your hearing aids, one of the notifications that, you have left your hearing aid behind at a place can show even though your hearing aid is right next to you. So I find it to be a little cumbersome, but it can be useful if you're not if you're not turning them on and off, or if you're not bothered by those notifications. So underneath these two things, so it also says hearing aid updates, which are just updates for your hearing aid. This I would not touch. I would not touch this button. The reason being that your hearing aid software, it is very important that it get updated correctly. And I find that if there's not a really stable connection between your phone and your hearing aids, you can mess up the update a little bit. And that's not fun. I would do this at your doctor's office. They will do this if you go in for a routine cleaning, or if you go in to get your ears checked. What they will do is they will take your hearing aids, they will check the tubes, they will also make sure that the firmware update is where it should be, and then they'll often check your battery for you, just because while they're in there, why not? So I would not touch this button, just simply because I haven't had a good experience. I've had hearing aids twice now that didn't update correctly. Um, that's not to say that it couldn't work in the future, but for right now, I would avoid touching it. Um, so underneath those two placards, there's then hearing aid settings. Um, when we click this, this gives us information about the kind of more nitty gritty pieces of the hearing aid. So this is battery notification and hearing aid details. So on this page, it says back at the top, which you can click to go back. Then it says hearing aid settings. Then it says battery notification settings, which is clickable. And then it says hearing aid details underneath that. So if we go to battery notification, you can tell it to essentially tell you when you want to get notified that your battery is low. So if your battery goes down really fast and you need to know when it's at 50%, one, I would say go into your hearing doctor and say, hey, my batteries are just flying through, because that could mean that there's something wrong. And two, you could also make it so that instead of your battery getting getting notified at 10%, you get notified at 20 or 30 or 50%. So what this page looks like is it says back at the top left again. Underneath that, there's a banner that says battery notification settings. Under that, there's a placard that says phone notifications, and it says choose when you get your battery notifications on your phone. There are 4 options. It goes 50% battery left, 30% battery left, 20% battery left, and then low battery. The other thing we're going to talk about is if we go back under hearing aid details. Now, this is probably not something that you're going to need to access, but I might as well explain it for the purposes of if, say, you have an appointment or say you need to get your doctor information about your hearing aids that they don't have, this is how you would do that. It tells you the models that you have and the firmware that they've had, as well as the serial number. So this is kind of not necessarily particularly useful information, but it could be useful one day, so you should know where it is. Okay, so now we're going to get to the last piece, which is the More tab. The More tab has 3 horizontal bars in a circle, and then it says More. It's on the bottom right-hand corner, and it essentially is more benefits that you can get around your hearing aid. It has a remote care option, a help and support option. I don't really interact with this page very much, but I've never used the remote care. I can't imagine that it's bad, but the other thing that I will say that is important here is the profile button. So this is useful for a couple of reasons. It gives information to the manufacturer. It lets you track share with them your hearing aid serial number so that they can give you information about possible updates on that lot of hearing aids that was created. It can also choose an app appearance, and then you can create an account or sign in for using the remote care option or the Odeon, some of the Odeon on apps. So that's really the only thing I would say is important on that page. For the most part, I think what we really want to go over today is the sound page and a little bit of details about the hearing aids, which we have done. So at this point, I'm going to open it up to questions. I know that was a lot of information to take in, but yeah. So if you have any questions, please feel free. Let me know.
Yes, Charles,
1.6.
I'm having the same problem. One of the things that I have trouble with is I hear a lot of church music, and I can hear the choir singing, but there are sometimes hymns that I can hear them but cannot understand the words.
Hmm.
Is that an impossible thing to try to fix? Is there a thing, say, for example, maybe not in Oticon, but let's say in a music program that can be adjusted so you can better understand uh, what they're singing? I realize with an organ booming in the background, it doesn't always help. But is that an impossible thing to kind of fix?
So there's two things I would say. One, I would discuss with your local, is it a church?
Yes, it is.
Okay. I would discuss with your local church what it is, if they have any sort of assistive devices. So some churches have essentially it's like a Bluetooth thing that you can connect with your hearing aids. So it's
Mm-hmm.
more directly into the speaker system instead of um, you having to interpret on the fly the hymns, meaning the voices, and
Mm-hmm.
then the booming organ music, right? That's
Yes.
it's in competition with each other, right? And the organ is significantly louder because, well, it's an organ, and look at those pipes.
That's right.
So it's almost impossible, acoustically, to imagine that you would be able to differ between the two. So I would start with asking your church what if they have anything like that, and then if that doesn't work, there are things like you could use your phone and you could put it up near where they're singing. There's certain pieces of technology you can get, like a Connect clip that have a little bit better range. So yeah, I would start with asking your congregation if they have anything like that, and then you can go from there.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Charles,
absolutely. Yeah.
Charles, this is Peter. Does this also information apply to AirPods?
Um. So the Oticon application won't work with AirPods. But if you mean like the question that Richard just asked, or just in general?
Oh, just in general about the settings and the settings.
You wouldn't be able to access these settings on the AirPods. There are certain things that you can do on the AirPods, but I'm not particularly familiar with those.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, Charles, it's Mara.
Hi,
Going back.
Maura.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Going back to the assistive hearing device for Richard and anyone else, you can always check with the Mass Commission on the Deaf and Hard of Hearing if they have it. And Massachusetts, at one point, had a program where you could get an assisted listening device, say for the Board of Selectmen meeting or a town meeting or a city council meeting, that you would be able to have that device and wear it so that assisted living, assisted hearing device, you could hear who's ever has the microphone in one of those meetings. And you can ask if your city or town has a disability commission, if they could get one, or even the city council, board of selectmen, so that they will have it at these meetings if you want to hear what's going on. And that who's ever holding the microphone their voice will come through that assisted listening device.
Yeah, I think, and I don't think it will be very hard to get this. For me, I have what's called a Connect clip, which I think is exactly what you're talking about, Maura, where they'll help you get a device to help you hear the meeting. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm sorry, I got pulled away from the meeting for a second when you were talking about that connected clip. So okay, that's great.
Yep. So yes, so I have mine. It just clips on to the lapel, and then I wish I had known about this in college, but I didn't know I had a hearing impairment at that time. Let me tell you, I did not do well in an introductory history lecture in a giant hall. And what I could have done at the time is I could have clipped this little thing onto their lapel, which just looks like a little black rectangle, and I would have been able to hear them all over the room. So yeah, there's tons of devices, particularly if you have hearing aids. There's tons of devices out there that can interface with them to help you connect. So yeah, there's even one that actually you can connect to your television that acts as a relay to help with your hearing aids. I don't have that one, but I've been told by people that it's very, very good.
That's good information because my husband wears hearing aids and he has a TV. Well, he doesn't wear them because he has a TV blasting.
Yeah.
So that I
You can
didn't
get
know
a
that.
relay. You can get a relay that will transmit it to the relay and then from the relay to the hearing aids, which is apparently very nice.
So then for me who doesn't use hearing aids, will I still be able to hear what's on the TV
You can, but it won't need to be as loud.
For more information,
Okay.
contact
All right,
Jerry
thank you.
Feliz, Access Technology Director, phone number 857-443-6636, email jfeliz@mapcommunity.org. Thank you so much for watching.